Hey everyone, Pack here. Today we're going to be talking about some weather here on Spark, upcoming storms and lots of cold on the way for across much of the United States, from all the way up near the Canadian border, all the way down to the coast. We're going to be dealing with a lot of cold air, lake effect snow as well, and some snow and ice potentially down in the deep south. So let's get right into it. So to get started here, we currently are looking at the satellite imagery here with upper level air 500 millibar map overlaid, and this is kind of showing us where our flow is coming from currently into the United States and what kind of low pressure systems we've got going on way up in the atmosphere, which will dictate our weather at the surface. So currently we've got a low over here in the Pacific Northwest, a little trough here. That is going to be moving into the south central states. And that is going to be our big ice and winter weather producer over the south central and then eventually up into potentially into the northeast. And that is kind of aided by this really deep low pressure here over Canada and this extension here in South Dakota. This low pressure is bringing down lots of cold air straight out of the Arctic, here, and this basically acting as a polar vortex, the tropospheric polar vortex, which is going to keep temps really low here. Especially north of, say, the Kansas-Missouri line here. But as I continue to play the satellite here, you can notice that currently this little low here is wrapping up, and this system is progged to dive southward into Texas over the next couple of days. Okay, so here I've pulled up a forecast model, the American model, initialized at 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central here, and 0Z run. It is currently showing that flow pattern I was just discussing. You've got Arctic air coming from the northern part of Alaska, really the Bering Sea here, all the way down into diving south into the United States. And here's that polar vortex I was talking about, initialized pretty well on the GFS. We have a huge area of ridging up here, which is forcing this air down. That, along with this little impulse here, is going to be our playmaker here for winter weather in parts of the southeast, south central, and eventually possibly the northeast states. So, as I play the GFS forward a little bit, let's go to 2 days from now. This is going to be Monday evening. You can see that the pattern has changed thus. We've built some more ridging here in Alaska, and that cold air is still coming right down. Basically, these blues are going to be indicative of colder air, and the reds and white colors here are indicative of much warmer air. So you can really see how these blues have built into the United States and continue to dig southward. And somewhere kind of in this region is a bit of a shortwave impulse. It's kind of hard to tell here at the 500 millibar map, which is way up in the atmosphere. But a weak little impulse here, as well as this little shortwave here, is going to cause a lot of lift in this area, and perhaps some, as it meets this southeast ridge down here, perhaps some overrunning in this area, and I'll go over what that means in a second. So the first thing here I'm going to talk about is this potential winter weather here in the south, and this is quite an unusual event for this area, so it may not be quite as bad as perhaps it was back in 2021, where we had these frigid cold temperatures all the way down to, say, Brownsville, Texas here. Corpus Christi. We are going to have potentially some ice in eastern Texas, parts of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and central Mississippi here, and then into Alabama. with snow on the northern side. Now, this system is progged to come in as per most model runs, and here I'm going to show you the 0ZHRRR, which is the rapid refresh model. It's probably our best model to look at this range here. We've got kind of this first wave with an initial impulse in the jet, which might bring some light snows to Oklahoma. Nothing too impressive. Perhaps a quick 1 to 2 inches out of this in places like Oklahoma City, like Little Rock in Arkansas, as this moves eastward. Now, this is for midday on Sunday into the evening hours. This boundary here sets up between this warmer air to the south and the colder air to the north, where we get kind of this overrunning setup that I mentioned earlier. Now, overrunning is where you have that boundary between warm and cold air, and it's a pretty sharp boundary. You get just enough southerly flow that overlaps and runs into that colder air, and basically that southerly flow is bringing warmer air, and it rises above the colder air as colder air is more dense. So that is going to, when it rises, it's going to condense, and eventually, with enough rising motion, you get precipitation out of it. And where it's cold enough, it can fall as snow. But a lot of times what that does is that leaves a nice cold air rushes underneath the warm air, like I just said, and that warm air can get trapped above, and you can get some snow that falls into a melting layer and then refreezes before it hits the surface, or when it does hit the surface, in which case you get sleet or freezing rain. And so that's very much on the table here for, as you can see, these colors here, these pinkish colors indicate freezing rain here in Louisiana and southern Arkansas, and even a couple parts of Texas here. And this kind of goes on for a while. This is kind of what tends to happen with overrunning events. They kind of, as long as that flow is there, they will just continue to pound the area, generally with lighter precipitation, but it could be over a long stretch of time. And here we're going into Monday morning here, before it finally starts to move off and actually kind of shifts a little bit southward. And that's being shown on most models before shifting eastward as well with time. So as far as amounts, accumulation of this ice here. Okay, so as far as amounts here of the potential ice accumulation out of the HRRR that we were just looking at, it's got some pretty hefty amounts through Texas and Louisiana through the end of the run here. I wouldn't take these amounts as verbatim, but they're potential, I mean, I would say a fairly widespread area of 1/10 of an inch of ice or more. And what that can do is really weigh down some trees, perhaps snap some branches with enough wind. As you go further south, it's a little more, it's a little less certain as to where this cutoff will be, and as well as to the north. But really in this central zone here, a widespread 1/10 of an inch or more is likely, and maybe even up to a 1/3 of an inch, 1/4 of an inch. Which can really do some damage, and you don't want to be going outside. You could be slipping on your driveways and streets and sidewalks and whatnot, so slippery going, and also watch for driving as well. Wouldn't be good to be on the roads in these kinds of conditions. Now, snow will be falling on the north side here, so just to real quickly look at that. This same model is predicting anywhere from, like I said, that 1 to 2 inch kind of swath here in Oklahoma, 2 to 3 in Arkansas, and perhaps more as we go further to the east, and I'll take a look at that here in just a moment, into Mississippi and Tennessee, where amounts could be higher than 3 to 4 to even 6 inches here. So taking a look here at the same model run for the Mid-South, a little bit further to the east here, we've got precipitation that will probably move in as some frozen, mostly frozen really, to the south and west there, starting in Arkansas around, well, this is about late afternoon into the early evening on Sunday. Really, that's going to be today. There in Arkansas, and then further east in Mississippi, a couple hours later. But really, northern Mississippi, at least on this model run, is kind of getting hammered with lots and lots of snow. A little bit of area of freezing rain to the south of that, but mostly snow here, and even a little bit of a snow arc here into southern Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and lots of Kentucky here. And this model run may not be exactly right, but it is showing probably the most likely scenario in my opinion. I might be cautious about looking at this Mississippi snow and seeing how much that is showing, as that ice snow line here is going to be very fickle to moving up and down in this area. But it is showing a decent amount of snow in that first wave there, and then second kind of push comes through Monday morning here. This is 16Z, and that one, at least on this model run, tries to stay south of Nashville, but Memphis is going to get hit by both of these pretty hard. And from what I've seen, Memphis probably has the best chance at seeing the most amount of snow out of this event, potentially up to half a foot, which is quite a lot for that area, and not very typical. So it's going to be a very interesting event for a lot of people, a lot of folks who are not used to this kind of stuff. So now to take a brief look at the ice accumulations here in a little further to the east, see how that progression goes, at least on the NAM here. And, it's really focused, I can tell, on this threat in southern Arkansas, at least on this model run, rather than the threat into Alabama. But there is still a decent amount of ice accumulation, 1/10 of an inch to even 1/4 of an inch in north central Mississippi here. But I know that some other model runs, I'll take a brief look here at the NAM, has shown quite a bit more ice in this region as compared to the HRRR. And also a little bit further to the north here. I know it was further to the south down here, so I wouldn't rule out ice pretty close to the coast, but probably unlikely. And then up here, it tries to give Alabama a little bit more ice. And actually, to kind of blend this all together, I'm going to look at the blend of models because this will give us a really good idea. And yeah, like I said, a widespread, I would up these amounts a little bit because this particular model tends to underdo amounts as it's looking at all the models, and some of them are not meant for ice accumulation. But I would say anywhere within this swath here, within this little box, could see upwards of 1/10 to 1/4 of an inch. So make sure to, I would not be driving on the roads if you can avoid it, and there might be some power issues and power outages, so I'd keep that in mind as you go throughout your early week here. So as we take a look at the snow here, I think this is probably the best model to use right now, as it kind of combines all the models, and while it isn't great for ice, I think it's pretty good for handling snow. Widespread area of 3 inches plus in much of Tennessee, maybe except for the extreme southeast corner, and maybe the northwest corner rather, and lots of Kentucky here into the Appalachians, West Virginia. West Virginia always does well with that upslope flow against these mountains, and even down into Mississippi. Northern Mississippi could see 3 inches, maybe 4. And again, Memphis to Nashville up into Kentucky, kind of the border here, the tri-border between Virginia, Kentucky, and West Virginia, could see 3 to 6 inches, fairly widespread, I would say. And This could shift north or south a little bit, depending on the evolution of the storm, because we are still 2 to 3 days away from this event as of the time of recording. But I don't see too many more major shifts to the north or south, and this is going to be the general corridor here of pretty decent snows. So I would still be careful. This maybe isn't quite as hazardous as the ice, but still be careful driving on the roads. There could be school closures here, potentially into Tuesday after MLK Day. So this could actually disrupt a lot of travel on MLK Day. So keep that in mind. And that's kind of what we're looking at here for the central southeastern U.S. So here, zooming in on the northeastern states, I'm using a model, kind of the short-term Canadian model, as I think it has a pretty good handle on what we might see here in the Northeast over the next couple of days as this system moves into the area. Currently, though, with a lot of cold air and winds coming kind of parallel to this lake here, or the Great Lakes here, we are seeing some intense lake effect snow, and I'll go over that on the radar in just a moment. But seeing some intense lake effect snows, that's going to continue for the next really couple of days as we get kind of another Arctic front moving through tomorrow, and then this system starts to move into the area. Now, the thing about this system as we go further to the east, it's going to be further out in time, so uncertainty will increase, or is increasing, as I move this out into the northeastern states. But I think the RDPS has a pretty decent handle on what might eventually happen, or at least one good possibility of what to happen here in the Northeast, as we see some lighter snow showers across much of the area, covering all of Pennsylvania, New York, Ohio, West Virginia, and even moving into like the New York City, the I-95 corridor here, up to Boston, down to Philly. There might be a little bit of mixing. Again, this is kind of that overrunning setup here. So mixing issues are definitely on the table, although not as likely up here as further to the south. But mixing issues still on the table, given this setup here. Not quite as big of a problem as we saw down to the south and south central states. But nonetheless, as we move this particular model forward, it is pretty close to the coast, actually, and starts to deepen this little low pressure here as the trough out west digs a little bit more and goes a little bit more neutrally to negatively tilted. And basically, when a trough goes neutral or negative tilt, it just maximizes the lift you get out ahead of it. So you can get these these low pressures that can deepen rather fast. So here, as we move forward with that deepening low pressure, you get more intense precipitation. This is one potential solution. I know some others are a little further offshore and don't give as much precipitation. So we'll have to keep monitoring as it can change. Overall, a solid hit for much of these northeastern states, especially New England here, and then on up into Maine as it exits the U.S. And just to take a quick look at the snowfall here off of this model run. Again, we get that extreme lake effect snow, and this is very well underdone for what the forecast is right now. This model doesn't quite handle that small scale, mesoscale precipitation in the lake effect snow bands as well. But this broad scale general snow, I think it does a pretty good job on. And, there's a widespread 3 to 6 inches further inland, and we'll have to watch the coast for potential mixing issues. But I do know that some other models are further offshore and give the coast kind of shift this whole 3 to 6 inch area south and probably lower it a little bit to 2 to 4. I'd keep my expectations at 2 to 4 for this event. Maybe more as you go up into Maine. And the further northeast you go, you'd reach the higher end of that potential. So currently, as I mentioned earlier, we are seeing this Arctic air blast into the country, into the lower 48 United States here. with that cold front draped kind of south here into Texas, across Arkansas, up into Illinois and Indiana, and then into Ohio. And this train of Arctic air is kind of continue for a while. But for now, we do have those really negative temperatures going all the way south into Oklahoma and Missouri, and eventually it'll continue to push kind of to the east here, as I'll show in a minute. And what's interesting here, and this is kind of a fun little tidbit, is these mountains are kind of blocking this cold air from headed into the southwest United States. So this cold air is going to kind of get pushed up against that. It's not going to cross over, and it's really just going to head southeast and then eventually kick out. But then there should be another area of cold air replacing that up in the northern U.S. And we're just going to continue to see a really Arctic and cold time period in the United States. So make sure to keep staying warm, stay inside if you can, especially anywhere really north of this line, and especially when I look at these wind chills. My gosh, we've got that 0-degree wind chill headed all the way into Texas. This is going to continue to push southward. We've got minus 50s up here in the areas that are a little more used to it, but still an unusually strong Arctic air surge here, and not something to take lightly. Minus 30s into Nebraska and 20s in Kansas. It's all going to be very, very cold. You want to bundle up when you're going outside. Wear extra layers. Stay warm. Make sure watch if any pipes freeze. Watch out for that. Try to limit your water use. It's not going to be a fun time here with all this cold air. And as we shift forward in the forecast for this, this is maybe not quite initializing the extent of the cold air quite as well, but this is the American model here. And so we can just say that the cold air is just, if anything, colder than what we're seeing here. And as I push it forward, we go into tomorrow, the daytime. We really only get it above the zero line here. In parts of Nebraska, Iowa, we really don't get above that zero line. And then even the freezing line pushes its way into the southeastern U.S. as that storm system moves through. And it's going to be very cold for many areas that are not used to it for this time of year. Or, well, for this time of year, it would happen, but not used to it just generally. And that Arctic air is going to continue to surge. It's going to move its way eastward, maybe weaken a little bit against the Appalachians, but still be pretty potent here as we move into late this week. This is going through the whole week, and moving into late this week, the chances are we're going to get another surge, maybe not quite as strong, but it's going to push even further south, most likely, where we've got these temperatures hitting freezing near the Gulf Coast, which is kind of wild, even for this time of year. You usually see freezing, like below freezing temperatures here in places like New Orleans, and yeah, they're going to be hitting that. That's 33 there. 30, yeah. New Orleans, Florida, places that are not used to it. And then we've got single digits down in Tennessee and parts of Mississippi and Alabama. And again, this isn't really going to affect the western United States quite as much, west of the Rockies. So there should be no big issues there, which is good for that area. But this Arctic air is really going to influence a lot of the weather patterns going forward. And then I do kind of expect a little bit of a warm-up as we head much later in the period, but this is prone to change at this point in the GFS. And but there are signs of potential relief going into the following week. So we'll get to that when we get there. But so we're going to have that cold air coming in, frigidly cold air into the entire, or well, the eastern United States here. And that is going to have quite an impact on the lake effect snow that we could see off the Great Lakes in this region as that cold air moves in. And as you can see here, this is the American model, which doesn't quite resolve lake effect snow that well, but anywhere you see these lightest blues, I would expect somewhere in there to be very heavy snow localized. And this is for the Midwest sector, so at least for this area, I don't expect a super high amount of snow as the flow is you would follow these black lines. It's kind of coming in like this, and maybe cross them a little bit. It's coming in like that, and that is perpendicular to the axis, say, of Lake Michigan, and even to some extent, especially up here, as it kind of flows a little more from the north up in Lake Superior. It's kind of perpendicular to the axis of that lake, and same with Huron. So that's going to foster more bands of heavy snow, but they aren't going to be quite as intense and long-lasting as, say, places further east, and I'll get to that in a moment. This is kind of ongoing right now. This is for the current time, Sunday into Monday, and then on Tuesday, it kind of goes away here, at least further west by Monday. It should be pretty much done, at least here in Michigan, maybe lasting a little bit longer up here in near Lake Superior in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. But as that second Arctic air blast comes in, we could see kind of a resurgence going into lots of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then eventually, once again, here in the state of Michigan. As that wind, actually in this time, that wind kind of is a little more north-south oriented. So that's going to favor places like South Bend, Indiana, for potential lake effect snow, and maybe more of an extreme band in a more localized area off of Lake Michigan, as it kind of is more parallel to the lakeshore here. There's a long axis of the lake. And that Arctic air is going to move through and then eventually subside by about Sunday. That lake effect snow should be done in the Midwest regions. And as we move it over, I'll just move it over real quick to the Northeast. I'm going to also zoom in, pick a different model here, because it's going to show that lake effect band more easily, because that's going to be a broad area in the Midwest. But here in the Northeast, we're going to have a very localized band. This is kind of ongoing right now. This is the high-resolution rapid refresh model, showing both off of Lake Erie and Lake Ontario here some pretty intense snowfalls, especially off of Lake Erie. And that is going to just continue to batter the same areas throughout the day, perhaps shifting a little bit to the north during the morning hours tomorrow. And then back to the south during the afternoon as a bit of a snow squall kind of comes in and takes in this real Arctic air as kind of behind an Arctic front here. And behind that wind direction once again aligns more parallel to the lake shores here. And with that cold air aloft, that warm lake surface, you're going to get some really heavy lake effect snows in here. I know the National Weather Service, which is going to be your best source of information, is predicting upwards of 3 feet in these areas. And, the HRRR, for what it's worth, is kind of on the same page here. In the very localized bands, I'm picking up like 28, 30 inches here. And up in the Watertown area, up to 34. Now, this kind of snow is pretty common for this area at this time of year, but nonetheless, it's something to take note of. And I know the Buffalo Bills are going to have problems playing in their stadium, which is just south of Buffalo here. as always. So that's kind of what we got going on for the snowfall. And actually, I can go to the current radar right now, and you can just see that lake effect band moving in and just kind of pelting right on top of the city of Buffalo. And all of these lake effect bands could have near blizzard conditions as well. So going to be important to watch and see. Make sure you stay indoors. Stay off the streets because crews are not going to be able to keep up with these snow rates as usual. And well, if I pull this up, this is going to be showing your snow, and we've got some really heavy amounts here. And so right now this band is right over Buffalo. I expect it to pivot a little further to the south with time, and then tomorrow afternoon it's going to move back to the north, and then probably pivot back to the south. It's going to kind of, with the wind direction, change a little bit, but it's going to overall just batter the same areas with very, very heavy snow, and not something to take too lightly. And I personally, I really wish I could be there because I am a big fan of snow, and maybe someday I will chase one of these events, and it'll be quite interesting to see. And we could put that footage here on Spark. Alrighty, so that'll wrap up this forecast discussion here for Spark Service. Hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, please make sure to like, share, subscribe, turn on notifications, as we will be going live, most likely chasing some of that snow down here in the southern Tennessee, Mississippi, and potentially Alabama areas as that little system moves in. And we will be chasing that probably on about Monday. And so make sure to turn on notifications, be notified when that comes out. And we'd love to see you there in the chat, and making sure that we can spread the most information as easy as possible. And it's going to be important to get that out there. So with that said, I'll talk to you guys in another video, and goodbye.